Thanks for staying with us. Since No Child Left Behind became law in 2002, it's been revised several times, and this year it's up for reauthorization. Again, Congressman Bucshon sits on the Education Workforce Committee in Washington, D.C. Thanks again for being with us.
Well, thank you for having me.
You know, No Child Left Behind it's a big issue in front of your committee right now. What are some of the overriding issues? We heard Tamara Skinner talk about some specific things, but what are some of the overriding issues affecting this reauthorization?
Well, I think the big issue, again, comes back to the federal role in education and allowing flexibility for states and local educators to do the things that they feel they need to do for their community to make their students successful. And it was discussed, the annual yearly progress, and as you know, under the current system, a large percentage of our schools will be considered failing schools by 2013 or 2014, and we clearly are going to have to revise that portion of the No Child Left Behind. The growth model that was discussed is something that I think there is a big push for in Washington, D.C. We recognize, and I think Chairman Klein from the committee recognizes, that students' progress year to year is what's important. Are they improving? Are they growing? Versus making them fit into specific categories. Because some students start behind other students, and so you need a way to assess progress and growth versus requiring specific testing points.
So in other words, we're looking at growth model. We're talking about value added.
Yeah.
Right? So if a student enters kindergarten 3 years behind, we're more interested in how that student grows rather than whether a student passes a particular test at a specific grade level.
I think that's right, and because as you know, with all the different categories of students that schools need to meet the AYP criteria, it becomes difficult if you don't have a process in place that assesses those students that do start behind others. Even though a school their students are improving, they still may be considered a failing school under the current system. So we're concerned about that, and advice from people like you and from the states is very important to help us change that so it more fits what you're trying to do at the local level.
Okay. You know, what some people don't understand is that there are a lot of subgroups. Like in the EVSC, for instance, we have 33 different subgroups. Each has to make AYP for the district to make AYP. And really for the first time since the No Child Left Behind Act became law, EVSC made AYP in 2010. It's hard to do.
It's very hard.
I mean, with all the subgroups. So, you know, other than AYP, what are some other issues within this reauthorization you think will become important discussion points? Well,
I think the ongoing discussion about how to assess our teachers and our administrators in the education system is, as you know, a controversial discussion that I think we do need to have. Again, focusing on, in my view, what the states and local level want to do in that regard, and giving them the flexibility at their level to assess their teachers and to reward teachers that are very good, but also have a system in place that identifies teachers who are not as successful in educating their students, and doing that in a fair and balanced way so that we can all reach the goal that we want, and that is our students in the United States being competitive with the rest of the world and being educated in a way that all of us want.
You know, you serve on the Education and Workforce Committee. It's not by accident that those two areas are linked.
They are linked. Yeah.
They're linked very intentionally because of the education outcomes leading to this global workforce that and for America's competitiveness.
Yes.
When you look at the overall, and you talk about the federal role in education and No Child Left Behind, I keep hearing you talk about flexibility and accountability.
Yes.
Those are difficult things to balance.
They are very difficult to balance.
So how do you think we're going to go about doing that? What kind of discussions need to take place for us to come to some understanding of what that balance looks like?
Well, again, from a federal level, I think that we have to have basic expectations about what our school systems are doing around the country. But again, people like yourself know more about your teachers, more about your students, and more about your community than we do in Washington, D.C. So I think the challenge is having, as we discussed before, national goals in education but then balancing that with the flexibility for local educators to reach those goals in a way that is successful for them at the local level. And it's honestly we're in an early process of that in our committee as we assess the No Child Left Behind and ways to move forward. There's been a lot of discussion. There's no definitive answers yet to how we balance that. But we do know that we've spent really $1 trillion or more at the federal level on education. And if you look at what we've done in our country as a whole, I don't think we've necessarily been successful in moving the needle towards more successful students. So we need to look at new things, new ideas, and see why that is. And funding is something that is important, and also just to talk about it, giving local people like yourself more flexibility in how they use their federal dollars, I think, is important.
Well, Congressman, we're very fortunate to have you in Washington, D.C., and thanks for all the work you do.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
The EVSC Spotlight's up next.